Hello everybody, my name is Walter and today I want to show you how you can build a very simple sand wall that is up to 12 blocks high. So this is the design I want to show you. As you can see, it's flying machine based and it's modular. So you can even decrease the height from 12 blocks to less if you want. More about this at the end of the tutorial. The design is flying machine based and as such the costs are pretty much constant independent of how long your wall is. The only limitation here is that both sides should be and all of the intermediate parts should be in the loaded chunks for this to work properly, at least during retraction and extension. Anyway, as you can see, we have two circuits. One is for the raising of the wall, and the other is for the retraction of the wall. So let me show you this in action. If I press this button here, you can see the retraction starts, the flying machines start to go on, and the sand is starting to rise. And at some point, we have our sand wall with one layer of normal blocks at the bottom. And once it's here, we can trigger the retraction. And I really like the way the timing worked out because you get this nice looking alternating falling sand pattern here when it's retracting, which I really, really like to look at. So anyway, that's basically what this thing does. Now, one warning here, it's not spam protected. So you should only press the buttons if the retraction or extension has completed. Otherwise, this design here might self-destruct. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the sizes. So as you can see, the entire design is only 3 blocks wide, so pretty slim actually. The golden blocks here are just relocating the inputs to the top and are not really part of the design itself. Then we have the height of the build, which is a total of 13 blocks or 25 blocks if you also count the space where the wall extends into. And the length obviously depends on the length of the wall, but basically it's the wall itself and then 6 blocks on each end additionally for the circuitry. That's the total size. And with that, let's talk about the required resources. So to build this, you're gonna need for the circuitry and the flying machines, building blocks, then 19 obsidian blocks, 12 slime blocks, 40 repeaters, 34 observers, 24 sticky pistons, and then I'm using 2 buttons as inputs. And then for each slice of the wall, of the actual wall, you're gonna need additionally 1 obsidian block, at least a normal block, and 11 sand blocks. And then whatever you need for the wall itself, or the floor itself. And with that out of the way, let's show you how to build this wall here. So, the first thing you need to do is figuring out how big you want your wall to be. For that, just build the part of the floor where the wall gets pushed through. This is basically this one wide slit here. The length of the slit is obviously the length of the future wall. On one side you can see you can use normal blocks, on the other side you need obsidian blocks or another immovable block along the entire length of the slit. Then on one end we need an additional 2x2 of obsidian blocks. This is the side where you trigger the raising of the wall. And the opposing side is obviously where you trigger the descending of the wall, or the retraction of the wall. And here you need just 2 obsidian blocks and a third one diagonally down from the middle. Once you have done that, go to the side where we trigger the ascending or raising of the wall. And from this corner of the 2x2, we need to go 2 blocks further out and then 11 blocks down. 6, 9, 11. And we only need the last of those blocks down here. From there, go 1 block further out, as you can see here, and then raise a block. Then on the other side, the side where we have the non-obsidian blocks, or movable blocks, we need an observer powering upwards. This is our input for now. So let's for now just place a button down there so we can test everything later on. Next to that, we need an obsidian block, and then another normal block, and a normal block on top of the observer. Now we have 4 lowered blocks here. All of those get a repeater of 4 ticks running out from the raised blocks. And now we need another observer that looks at the repeater that is on the line with the first observer. And now we have this U shape here. This is basically one module. Now we need 4 more modules with the caveat that they are mirror images of the neighboring or the modules below and atop them. So the next module would start with the observer down up here, then this block, obsidian block, and over here let's place the 2 repeaters. Then our observer running into a block, another 2 blocks, and another 2 repeaters. Now you can see this makes a rather simple pattern, and we need to repeat this pattern basically another 3 times. And you should end up with something like this here, with, if you look at this from this side here, a total of 5 observers connecting the 2 halves of the U shape. Now for the last part of this side, just add another observer on top of this repeater here, followed by an obsidian block. That's basically the 6th module, which is a bit minimalistic. Anyway, now it's time for this side here where we have the retraction triggered of our wall. For that, we start by going out 5 blocks from this corner here on the side of the obsidian blocks. And then we need to go 12 blocks down. 3, 6, 9, 12. Again, we only need the last block for now. And now we build a similar U-shape to over there, but basically instead of triggering the signal upwards, we need to trigger it downwards. So first we need another block inwards and then a raised block. Put down 2 repeaters like so. Then an observer again along the middle of our build, looking at this repeater here and running into a full block. Then we need a lowered obsidian block and then an observer powering downwards this time. Again, another 2 repeaters on 4 ticks. And this is basically our pattern we once more need to repeat and mirror each time. So for that I would say we start with the observer for the next module, followed by the obsidian block. Then we have our raised block and the 2 repeaters. This side we have the observer running into this block, then the 2 lowered blocks and the 1 raised block. You can see this is a bit more fiddly than the other side, but the pattern is nevertheless rather simple. And again, we need to do this until we have a total of basically 5 of those modules. And if you have built it correctly, you should now have a total of, again, 5 observers connecting the 2 halves of the U shape. For the last part, again, we just need an obsidian block and an observer, this time running downwards. And since this is our input for now, let's place our button there, and you should see the signal traveling downwards all the way until it reaches the point at the very bottom there. Okay, so that's the 2 halves pretty much done. Now we need the flying machines. And they are very, very simple. We start on the side where we have the retraction triggered. And we go to those 6 observers here of the modules on the inside. Place an observer looking at it and running into a slime block. On top of the slime block, we need a sticky piston with another slime block to the face and a sticky piston below that in the opposite direction. Then we need another observer going in the opposite direction. So you can see one of the simplest flying machines ever. And then just 2 sticky pistons facing upwards next to the slime blocks along the middle line. And that's pretty much the entire pattern. Obviously, you need to mirror this again when you go to the next module. But besides of that, this pattern is pretty simple and only needs to be repeated 6 times in total. And once you have done that, you should have 6 flying machines in total with this zigzagging pattern of sticky pistons in the middle. At the top, it might be a bit tricky to get the flying machine or the sticky pistons in there, but it's doable. With that, we could give the entire thing a test run. So simply press the button here, and you should see one flying machine running after the other. And all should end up in a similar situation on this side here. Now you can see, due to interaction between the flying machines, this zigzagging pattern has at least mostly been inverted. But nevertheless, if we go down here and trigger the reverse operation, the flying machines should all be properly realigned and run in the opposite direction. Okay, that's what we want to see. Now, next, it's time to add the actual wall. For that, make sure the flying machines are on the side where we start with the retraction, or trigger the retraction. And then just add a row of movable blocks. Right on top of the slit in the wall, in the floor. And then we need our additional 11 high wall of sand. Just like this here. And now, lastly, let's test it with the wall in place. So you should see the wall is retracting. There should also now be no sand actually getting destroyed, which was an issue with the previous version I had of this. You won't find a tutorial for that because it broke before I was able to make one. But nevertheless, besides of that, this seems to work. And now the opposite direction should also be tested, just to make sure that everything works properly. And that's looking good. So with that out of the way, the last part is obviously filling in the floor and relocating the buttons a bit so you can actually reach them. And here we go. So as you can see, now the entire design is finished. The relocation of the button on the side of the retraction is pretty simple, as you can see, since it's already at the top. On the other side, since the input is at the very bottom, it needed a bit of more redstone to actually get it to the top. But nevertheless, this is now completely finished. As a last side note, if you don't want a 12 high wall, you can reduce the height. For that, if you want to reduce it by just 2, for example, just leave out the 2 lowest layers on each side together with the corresponding flying machine. If you want to reduce the height by 4, just leave out the 2 lowest modules or 4 layers on each side. If you want an odd height, just leave out the bottom sticky piston of the lowest module you are using. And that way you can basically get any height from just 1 high to 12 high. And with that, we have reached the end of this tutorial for this simple 12 high sand wall. I hope you enjoyed it, and well, see ya!